If you're just getting into training, a general basic cookie cutter program is a great way to go. It gives you structure, direction, and give you a well-controlled environment to start learning how to actually train. But as you progress and get stronger, general cookie cutter programs become less applicable. Highly structured programs can still work, but past the beginner stages, they're usually best reserved for very specific contexts. They have a more narrow focus and are aimed at a more narrow group of people. So something like a pull-up specialization program for people who are intermediate exercisers, that would be a good example of something like that. But that program can still be very structured, but its application is more narrow and it's aimed at a very specific audience. And the more advanced you get, the less applicable broad, highly structured programs become. And this is for a few reasons. When you're just starting out, you're the most responsive to training you're ever going to be. So you don't really need a lot of customization or fine-tuning. The tolerances around the training process are so loose that as long as you don't do something super weird, you're probably going to be making some pretty solid gains. And this allows for a very general but highly structured program that can serve a wide group of people. It can be very specific in the recommendations without being too exclusive. And instead, that specificity provides some guardrails to keep you from having to make decisions that require experience that you don't have at the time. But as you move along your development arc, your path starts to become more and more unique. Your strengths and your weaknesses, your preferences, your goals, all of these things that shape your training start to actually take shape themselves. And future progress and sustainability both depend on taking them into account because you aren't a beginner anymore. You aren't quite as responsive to training as you were when you started, and you can't get away with the same general approach. And something else happens too. As you get more fit, you can experience more volatility in your day-to-day performance. Now, as a beginner, especially if you're young, the rate at which you adapt is so fast that it can overcome a lot of obstacles that are in your way, including ones that you put there yourself. Now, as you become more fit, a bad night of sleep, going out drinking with your friends, getting a bad cold or dealing with some food poisoning, or even just a stressful week at work, that can actually take a major toll on your performance. Now, as a beginner, every workout can literally be a peak performance, even if your recovery process isn't very careful. But that only happens for so long because later on, peaking and setting a PR might be something you do once every few months or maybe even longer. So all this to say, as you become better trained, general rigid programs aimed at the masses, they just lose their practicality. Your program really needs to move from general and rigid to specific and flexible. You need to approach training in a way that is specific to you and where you're at and your goals and all that sort of thing. But it needs to be flexible enough to take into account that not every day can be a PR and that some days will be tougher than others. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.